The Southern Philippines, provinces versus the city life. Thought that'd be a good topic for today. I've spent the last almost month in the city of Davao, which is the largest city in the Southern Philippines, after having spent months in the provinces, and I'm finally back. So today we'll talk about what I think the differences are between living in the city and living in the provinces. So for you guys who are new to the channel, just to let you know, I spent about 4 or 5 months living in the province of Davao Del Sur in the Southern Philippines. And then for almost the last month, I've been living in Davao. And I'm finally back in the province. I'm in the city of Digos here again today. And want to talk about my experiences and what I saw, the good parts of living in the city, the good parts of living in the provinces, and kind of compare the two. One thing as you would expect living in the city compared to the provinces is just the conveniences. And mostly I'm talking about with the stores and other little things such as restaurants, opening hours, closing hours, and that sort of thing. So here in the province, there's really not a 24-hour cycle to things as you would have like in the big city. Davao's gone back to normal in that regard. And so there were stores, there were restaurants in Davao that are open 24 hours and that you could even order food in some cases very late at night, perhaps even in the middle of the night. I didn't try that, but I did up till like 10 o'clock at night, where you could not do that here in the province. Where in this city, basically after 7 o'clock at night, you're not going to order anything online. It's just not going to happen. Dodging traffic. The other conveniences were the variety of restaurants. As you would expect in a big city, you're obviously going to have more choices, more international stuff, just more different restaurants. Whereas here in the province, you've got lots of, I guess they call them calendarias, but local restaurants and shops. You have a few chains, but overall, it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. You've got a little bit of variety, but if you've lived here for several months and you eat out a lot, you're going to get kind of bored. That's just the nature of living in a smaller town compared to a big one, and that's probably really anywhere in the world. It was certainly true with me living in the United States and having to go to a bigger city to have more choices. The heat just is blistering down today. It's kind of hard to keep your concentration while you're walking and talking to the camera. So I'm going to go stationary for a second so I can get my thoughts together on this, or at least get them back together. So one thing that I really liked about living in Davao was the fact that the water pressure there was good all the time. So it's just on. Whereas here in the mornings, especially in the area that I live, but I've talked to people that live in other areas, basically you don't have much water pressure in the morning. So if you're one of those morning types of people who like to take your showers and baths in the morning compared to a night person, then you're out of luck, because you're not going to have enough to actually run a shower in the early hours of the morning, because everybody else is too. Whereas in the city, I didn't have to worry about that. The water just worked all of the time. The utilities, the internet was much better. It was much faster. And I'm talking about on the mobile. Landline, I have good landline, or I guess fiber here in the province too, so it doesn't really matter. But overall, the utilities, they worked a lot better and more consistently in the city than they do here in the province. Now, back in the United States, we really don't have that problem. The utilities, work about the same everywhere, or at least in my experience, they had in the areas that I had lived in the United States. But that's one thing here in the Philippines that they do have. They have brownouts in some cities. They have blackouts in some cities because the power grids just can't keep up. I'm fortunate in the place that I live when I'm living in Digos that it's very centralized and it's prioritized as far as we rarely have brownouts. And if we do, they happen for a very small amount of time. Even if they're weather related, usually things are back up at the most within a couple of hours. But in Davao, I just didn't have that, especially in the two different areas that I was living in. I was staying mainly for the most part in the Matina district. And then I had also stayed down near G-Mall and the Rojas night market. So really kind of the center of the city at that point. Another thing I'll say about living in the city compared to the province was the level of noise issues. I see a lot of people in my comments always complaining about noise and karaoke parties and stuff. It doesn't really get to me, but I will point out that when I stayed in Davao, you did not have that. I didn't hear a single karaoke party the entire time that I was living there for the last month in the areas that I was at. The neighborhoods were just quiet. These weren't gated communities or anything. They were just, literally, I was 2 blocks from the S&R in Davao, which is like a major Costco there. I didn't have that. Whereas the very day that I got back here, I was in one neighborhood here in the province, and karaoke party was blaring away when I got out at the drugstore there. And when I got back to the house, I could hear one about a block over from where I was staying. So, you know, that's just in the province. Apparently they have more regulations in the city. So if that's something that gets to you or gets under your skin, that didn't happen in Davao. I'm sure there's areas of the city it does happen in. Maybe they got more restriction. Maybe I just got lucky in the couple of places that I was at, but I did not notice. Now the cost of living in the city of Davao compared to the province was surprisingly, food-wise, was about the same. It was, I went to the local market there where they bring in all of the food, and it was basically, I compared several different items, but one ate a lot of shrimp. So it was, I think, 10 pesos more a kilo than it was here in the province. So it was, for all intents and purposes, you know, market price, that can fluctuate that much, one vendor to another, so about the same. So the grocery stores were hit and miss, actually, as far as the costs go. I compared prices compared to what I see here in Digos, and some things were more expensive in the grocery stores in the Davao City. I'm having to dodge traffic, so I'm gonna pull over here so I don't get run over while I'm talking to y'all. But a lot of things were a lot cheaper. So stuff that's imported, foreign goods, much more available, as you would expect in the city than in the provinces, and it was cheaper. It was just cheaper. Things you don't necessarily have to buy, but for instance, I looked at like salsas and stuff like that, and it was at least $1 a jar cheaper than what I've seen it for in the province for the exact same items. So some things are a little more expensive. I did notice that the ground beef in the grocery stores was more expensive than the grocery stores here in the province, but it was better quality. It was light years beyond better quality than what I get here in the province. And it's hit or miss. You know, you go to the grocery store here in the province, they may not have ground beef today. They may have it next Tuesday. They may only have it one day a week. Whereas when I was going to the grocery stores, the various ones around Davao, it was always there, same days. Now, housing costs as far as rental prices and just purchasing units and things like that, much more expensive in the city. Again, to be expected that it would be more expensive in those areas. So nothing really, get out of this music here. It's one of the challenges in vlogging in Southeast Asia is you'll be in a place talking and then all of a sudden somebody will pull up blaring their commercial music and there goes your video. So I had to move it. Anyway, I expected the housing costs to be more expensive. Nothing of a shock there. I will say that the availability of different types of housing and different things that you might be looking for, there's more of a variety, which is also to be expected because of a bigger city. Overall, the conveniences of living in the city were much better than I would say they are here living in the provinces. The provinces do have some benefits, but overall, at least, again, now we've got more music, but overall, I would prefer probably to live in the city. The other thing about Davao in particular is that it's a very convenient city. You can literally just in an hour or two, be on a ferry, be across the Samal Island, which has some amazing beaches. So you have that aspect of it, some of the better beaches in the southern Philippines, especially in around the Davao region, till you get out to like Mati and stuff. One other huge advantage to the city of Davao in particular was airport, and being where I could get some international flights, but just flights all over. Whereas when I'm in the province, I'm going to have to go 1 to 2 hours to get to an airport. That bears additional expenses. So unless you have a car, you're taking your family with you, you're going to spend quite a bit of money nowadays to get from the province and get your stuff to the airport and then to get back. Again, if you have a vehicle, that alleviates some of that. But I don't at this point, other than motorcycle, and you're not going to put a family of 4 on there. So after all of that, still great things about the province. I love Digos. I love this town. I love that if you just look from where I'm at here in the city to over there in the distance, you can see the mountains, and I can be there basically in 15, 20 minutes. So that's pretty awesome. So one benefit that's not necessarily all provinces versus all cities, but this particular province versus Davao is the beaches. And so you can see here that this province's beaches, they're okay, they're nice, but they're not the best beaches in the Philippines. Whereas you compare those to what you can get right over in Samal, they're much, much nicer. So that pretty much wraps up the Davao City to the Davao Del Sur province and my thoughts on those. You know, it depends on what you're looking for. It depends what you like. I don't know where I'll end up finally in the Philippines as my home base. I do know that I like Davao, and there are a lot of conveniences there. So we may be looking at that, and I may end up there later in the year. We'll see. So stay tuned. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button so other people can find it. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.